Get everybody's attention. Is everybody ready? Anybody out in the hallway or anything? Mark, is there anybody out in the hallway?
I don't see anybody.
No? Okay. All right, good evening. I'd like to call this Thursday, November 1st, 2018 Board of Health meeting officially to order. This Board of Health meeting is being taped and will be rebroadcast numerous times on WACA television. Is there anybody else here, video or audio recording the meeting? Seeing none, even though we are outside the parameters of Ashland, we open up all Board of Health meetings with citizens' participation. Are there any citizens of Ashland here that want to have a question before we go into the seminar? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Chris, and Chris will be introducing everyone.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Daniele. I proudly serve in the Ashland Board of Health as an elected member. I also work here at Mass Bay Community College for the last 20 years as the coordinator of instructional technology. I'll give you a couple of quick housekeeping things, very simple. If you need to use a restroom, any exit from the auditorium, just to the left before that door, there are 2 restrooms there, and then way down the hall, there's a bunch more. There's also a water fountain to drink from just outside the door over here. We'd ask if you could silence your cell phones. That would be appreciated. And when you leave here, if you would be so kind as to take your trash with you, there are trash cans at the exits. A couple of quick thanks. The President of Mass Bay, Dr. David Podell, Special Events Coordinator Amanda Levasser, and from Facilities, Matt Lewis, Ashland Board of Health, our Chair, John Featherston, our Vice Chair, Diane Mortensen, and our members, KG Nariana and Dr. Ron Etzkovitz, our Health Agent, Mark Oram, and of course the wind beneath our wings at the Board of Health, the one who gets everything done, Ms. Laura Clifford. I want to thank Susan Petroni from The Source and the entire staff of the Metro West Daily News and our own WACA television channel. I want to thank our speaker and our panelists, who you'll meet shortly, and thank you all for coming. Right now, it's my great pleasure to introduce your speaker for the evening, for the first portion of the evening. She is the program coordinator of the Greater Boston Tobacco-Free Community Partnership, Miss Mary Cole.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, everyone. So I am excited to share with you guys just some information on e-cigarettes, vaping, Juuling. Just people don't really know what the facts are about it. So I'm hoping that you guys are going to leave here today just knowing a lot more about this, and hopefully you can spread the word as well. So just a little bit more about me for my position. So my title, I'm the Greater Boston Tobacco-Free Community Partner. I'm funded under the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program, and I serve 56 communities in Greater Boston region. So with anything to do with tobacco, basically. So providing secondhand smoke, preventing secondhand smoke, cessation resources, and preventing kids from using tobacco products. And basically all I have been doing with my job is preventing kids from using tobacco products and doing presentations like this, because e-cigarettes and vaping just has really skyrocketed recently. So agenda-wise, this is just the layout for me of what I'll be talking about. At the end, we will have the panel for questions and discussion. And so, I'll actually probably just head over to the panel. So any other additional questions that I missed that you have about my presentation, you can feel free to ask then. Alrighty, so this is Massachusetts 2017 data about high school youth that have used tobacco products in the past 30 days. So about 20% of Massachusetts high schoolers have used an e-cigarette in the past 30 days. That's pretty high. What's really interesting to note here is that cigarette use is at about 6.4%. That's an all-time low for Massachusetts. So as we see that people and kids specifically aren't smoking cigarettes, it's really interesting just to see the skyrocket in e-cigarette use. As public health, we've done such a good job of getting kids to say ew, like cigarettes are gross, and we put all these policies in place. Then just e-cigarettes almost came out of nowhere, and we're seeing kids using these at just such alarming rates. All right, so I'm gonna do a little Vaping 101, because a lot of people don't fully understand what it is, or what an e-cigarette is, or what a Juul is. Can anyone tell you what this is? This picture is right here. Yes.
It's a Juul.
Yes, good job. He's young, so that's why he knows. All right, so just in general, vaping, it's inhaling and exhaling an aerosol from a battery-operated device. So what's interesting is there's a lot of different names. This kid right here, he probably wouldn't say that his friends use e-cigarettes. He'd probably say they Juul or they vape. Is that correct? There's so many different names for these products. So e-hookah as well is another one. Some of the bigger devices are like mods and tanks, and I'll show you guys some pictures and products as well. Nicotine delivery, or electronic nicotine delivery systems, ENDS. No one says that except for health professionals. So you'll probably hear like a doctor or someone say that, but no one else says that. And again, Juul is so popular, the brand. So Juul is a brand of e-cigarettes, which I don't think kids fully realize that it's a brand of e-cigarettes, but it's become so popular that there's actually a verb to use to describe the act of using the Juul, Juuling. There's some other products too, Bo, Blue, and some other popular ones that I'll talk about a little bit too. But this is just an example of an array of different e-cigarettes. Like I said, they come in all different shapes, sizes, colors. I don't think anyone uses the e-pipe or e-cigar, but they're there, they exist. But yeah, and then so additionally, there are these e-liquids and e-juices which contain the nicotine and just the general solution that's in these. And so I'm going to go through some of the products to show what you can put in what, but there's some that are refillable that you can see these products on the left. You can actually put that e-liquid / e-juice in it. And there's some that are totally disposable. And then there's some that we call like mod pods. So there's those pods that you see on the right that have the e-liquid in it, pre-filled, and then once that's done, you just toss out the pod. Just quickly, something I want to know that, so I have this right here, but there's a bigger picture for you to see it. Currently, e-liquids and electronic nicotine delivery systems and e-cigarettes, they're not regulated by the FDA. The ingredients are not regulated. So companies can put whatever they want in these, and this includes nicotine. So in some products, they can have 0 nicotine, or they say they do. So this one is an example of that. So on the front it says 0, which means 0 nicotine. On the back it said this product does not contain nicotine. And then in ingredients, check out that last ingredient. It says nicotine. So there's been studies that have tested the nicotine in all these various e-juices and e-liquids. And a lot of them have shown, ones that say 0 nicotine, they actually do have nicotine in them. And some of them that say they have a certain amount of nicotine, they actually have more. So this is just something to know, that nicotine is going to be in these products, and it doesn't have to be accurate, and also other ingredients too. We don't exactly know. So also in general, this is how it works. Here's just an image. It shows there's that battery. That battery then powers up the atomizer. That atomizer, there's some metal coils that connect to the cartridge that hold the e-liquid / e-juice, and then that mouthpiece at the end is what you inhale through. And like, again, a lot of these products just look so different, but this is generally how they all work. Just so a little background. So e-cigarettes were created in the early 2000s by a Chinese pharmacist. And the purpose was for smoking cessation. His father died from lung cancer. So he was trying to find a harm reduction approach to it. And that's the e-cigarette all the way on the left. It looks just like a cigarette, kind of, right? And that's what people kind of thought of with e-cigarettes at first. And so that was a disposable one. And we started to see more disposable ones. I have one right here too. It's actually that one pictured right next to it. This is blue. So it has that e-liquid already in it. It's pre-charged, and then you toss it out when it's done. So pretty quickly after this cigarette mimic, we started to see all these different shapes, sizes, and flavors. So we started to see more vape pens. And just to note what these vape pens look like right now, a lot of these are actually used to vape marijuana, THC oil, forms of it. You can also put the e-liquid in it as well that I showed from before. Then we started to see these big tank systems in the mods. And that might, I don't know if you guys have ever seen someone walking on the street or in a car and you just see a ton of vapor or smoke coming out and you have no idea what just happened. I see it all the time. And so that's a tank system. And so here's a small one that I have right here. And that's kind of too, if you guys seen the vape shops when they came out, there's people that do games and competitions basically with creating clouds and things like that. And so that's kind of the vape community, especially with these bigger interchangeable sort of tanks and mod systems. And really when what we saw take off is these rechargeable e-cigarette mod pods like Juul. So I mentioned before, I have one right here. Here's a Juul. You just take out the pod and you are able to put it back in. It charges right in a USB port, right in your laptop. So you're able to do that. I know that we'll probably talk about it in the panel later, but kids are able to just put this right in their laptop at school. And then there's also lots that look just like Juul as well because it's so popular. I'll talk about that in a few slides too. But a little bit more about Juul. Juul has about 75% of the e-cigarette market right now. It's wildly insane and popular. So why is it popular? Well, first of all, it's a nicotine salt, which actually makes it easier to intake, and it actually makes the nicotine absorb a lot quicker than a regular e-cigarette, which is concerning. Juul is sleek. It feels so nice in your hand. You can put it right in your pocket. Again, it looks just like a flash drive. It's so concealable. When you inhale/exhale and the vapor comes out, it can dissipate pretty quickly. So it's just kind of a casual thing that you do. There's not as much stress like with a cigarette. You have to go outside, you have the lighter. It's just a totally different experience. And I mean, I feel like I'm probably always looking out for it, but if you see someone walking down the street, they can just pull it out of their pocket, take a hit, and then put it back in their pocket and keep walking like nothing happened. You can't do that with a cigarette or anything. So cost-wise, because everyone always asks, I know some people will ask me this, this right here, the setup that you see is a Juul starter kit. It typically goes for about $49.99 for 4 Juul pods, the charger, and the reusable base. That seems pretty pricey, but if you want to break it down, the 4 Juul pods, that pack is $16. Each pod is $4. And each pod, the nicotine in each pod is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes. And I have a few slides that I'll talk about that more, but there's an insane amount of nicotine in Juul pods. It's insane. And it's really, really concerning. So about 4 o'clock, I opened an email and got all this new data that just came out. So forgive me for not being knowing it in and out right now. But the Truth Initiative just sent out an email with this information, and they had a survey. It was about more than 13,000 young people between the ages of 15 and 34. And they found that 15 to 17-year-olds are 16 times more likely to use Juul than a 25 to 34-year-old. 16 times more likely. That's insane. That's high schoolers. They're so young, and this is so, so concerning. Also, they found that 10% of 15 to 17-year-olds have used a Juul. 1 in 10. That's a lot of young people using Juuls. Additionally, the 15 to 17-year-olds who use Juuls, 56% they used it 3 days in the past month, and almost half of that group says they use it 10 plus times a month. So they're using these pretty often as well and getting a lot of nicotine in them. And so just something else to note from this study, or not from this, just from Juul, about Juul in general. The website says that one standard Juul cartridge, which I can talk about here, a Juul pod equals roughly the nicotine content of 20 cigarettes, which is a pack of cigarettes, and the device delivers nicotine up to 2.7 times faster than other e-cigarettes, increasing the potential for addiction. So this is what's really concerning here. And also to note, so Juul pods, their nicotine content is almost 3 times more what is allowed in the European Union. So the EU does not allow Juul currently because there's way too much nicotine in these products. So like I said, here in the United States, we're not regulating this stuff right now. The FDA is looking into it and wanting to regulate it because they've seen this huge, obviously it's a huge public health concern and epidemic at this point, but it's not, it's being used like this. And there's also other countries have banned Juul too, like Israel banned Juul as well. So there's still a lot to know, and just, we can talk about it later too, just the impact of e-cigarettes of youth versus harm reduction of people that use cigarettes, older people. And also to know that there's always new products. The tobacco and vaping industry are always going to be one step ahead of us public health people. There's a lot of Juul lookalikes that are coming out as well, especially from tobacco companies like Mark 10. You can see that one in the bottom left. We're also seeing just different ones, like that bottom right is called the Suron Drop. I have it right here. It's another one like Juul that feels really good in your hand. Feels so cool. So, and also to note, I have all these products here, and I really hope you guys can stick around to like touch and feel them. I think it makes a big difference just to actually see them in person. Okay, so now to know what is in these products, because right now if you ask almost anyone, they say, oh, it's water vapor. It's totally fine, it's just water vapor. It's not water vapor, it's an aerosol. An aerosol is like a hairspray. That's what you're inhaling, an aerosol. And so the typical ingredients in these e-liquids and e-cigarettes, it's propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, nicotine, and some sort of food flavoring. Those are your typical ingredients. That is not water vapor, those are chemicals. And so what we know that when this stuff is heated up and inhaled, this little picture is what we see. We see volatile organic compounds. We see ultrafine particles that can stick deep into your lungs. There's cancer-causing chemicals in there. There's been studies that have shown that propylene glycol, when heated, can create formaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen. There's other carcinogens in there as well. Heavy metals like nickel, tin, and lead is what you're inhaling. And something else to note is that diacetyl, which is linked to something called popcorn lung, there's a study that was done on a bunch of e-liquids, and on those e-liquids, there was about 75% of them contain diacetyl, this flavor chemical. just so everyone always asks, what is popcorn lung? Popcorn lung was discovered in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Basically these popcorn workers, they were working with this flavoring diacetyl, and they noticed that they were starting to have these like lung and breathing issues. And so basically what was discovered is that diacetyl had caused a scarring of the lungs that's irreversible, which causes like shortness of breath and like COPD sort of symptoms like that as well, coughing, wheezing. But yeah, so it's a very concerning disease that is linked to this diacetyl in e-cigarettes. Something else to know too is what kids like to say is, well, we know that propylene glycol and glycerin, those are approved by the FDA to eat in foods at small levels. So for some reason they think that's okay to inhale. Like nothing's okay to inhale except for clean air. And so just an analogy that I like to give with that as well is that your stomach has acid that can break down these chemicals, right? What does your lungs have? They don't have acid, they have nothing. So this stuff just sticks to your lungs. And we do know that nicotine is found in these, and it can be found in very high levels, like in Juul. We know nicotine is super addictive, especially for adolescents, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide after this. But basically, the adolescent brain is still developing until about your mid-20s. And so nicotine actually impacts the chemical and structural makeup of your brain. It can lower your impulse control. It can lead to depression and mood disorders. It disrupts your brain circuits that control learning. And it also can prime the brain for addiction to other drugs as well, which is something that's really concerning to think about, especially with this opioid crisis that's happening too. With recent research on e-cigarettes, youth who use e-cigarettes are almost 4 times more likely to start using combustible tobacco products. So we're seeing kids that would never use cigarettes or combustible tobacco products that are using them now because they started with e-cigarettes. Something also that I really like to hone into is that the younger you start using nicotine, the more likely you are to be addicted for life. So if anyone knows anyone that currently smokes cigarettes, you should ask them how old they were when they started. Because my dad actually smoked. He recently quit, which is awesome. I'm very proud of him. But he started smoking when he was 12. And he could not quit. He tried various times and he had such a hard time quitting. And so the data shows that 9 out of 10 people that smoke, they started before their 18th birthday. So that's why we're so concerned that all these young people, those 15 to 17-year-olds that are 16 times more likely to use these products than older people, or than, I guess, young adults, like that is so concerning. And there's also a reason for young people being targeted to use these products, because guess what? They'll be lifelong customers for these tobacco and vaping companies. That's how they make a profit. So there's a reason that these products are used by kids, because the companies want them to be. Also, just something else that we know, this is just the data showing that e-cigarette users, 30.7% of them went on to start smoking combustible products, compared to 8.1% of non-e-cigarette users who went on to smoke cigarettes. Something else that's really concerning, kind of how I mentioned earlier, is like everyone thinks it's just water vapor that they're vaping. From this study, teens, 66% of them said it's just flavoring. So they have no idea what's in this product. And 13.7% of them actually said, I don't know what's in this product. And only 13.2% said nicotine. And 5.8% did say marijuana, and I'm going to talk about this in a few slides too. with these e-cigarettes and vape pens and tanks, you can vape marijuana in them as well. So overall, are e-cigarettes safe? No, they are not safe, especially for young people, pregnant people, and anyone in general that has never used tobacco products. This is because of the nicotine and other chemicals that I mentioned before. And so what the CDC says right now, the Center for Disease Control says right now about e-cigarettes, if you currently use tobacco products, they say it's most likely better for you to completely change over to e-cigarettes as a harm reduction approach because you're not getting that tar. You're getting a little bit less chemicals and carcinogens. So far, it looks like. However, what ends up happening with a lot of people that use tobacco products or use cigarettes is they end up dual using with e-cigarettes. So you're getting like a lot more chemicals than you would with just using one. So that's something there. Also, what's pretty tough with e-cigarettes right now is they are so new that we don't have long-term research on them. So that's something that kids say too is, well, I don't know, we're gonna be fine. I don't know what's gonna happen if we don't, compared to cigarettes, like it seems fine. So we do need the long-term research. But what do we know? We know about nicotine, we know about diacetyl, we know that these chemicals, there's harmful chemicals in there and known carcinogens. Something else too is that the secondhand vape, so the stuff that you're inhaling, that aerosol, if someone's around you and can smell that, that's not safe for them, that's harmful for them. And this is something I think like to hone in to anyone that's around little kids, especially, or just friends and anyone in general, is that you're exposing them to that secondhand vape. And just right now, everyone thinks it's safe and it's fine. So I think that's why, like I've seen people doing it in bars and on the T. Like people think it's fine to do inside, and it's not safe. Something else with e-cigarettes, you guys heard there's been some explosions. Some guy got some second-degree burns, so the batteries can explode. Also nicotine poisoning. This e-liquid, if you swallow that, if a little kid gets a hold of it and swallows it, it could be fatal. It's really dangerous. And also, just kids that are juuling and like vaping this much nicotine too, they can get symptoms of nausea and vomiting because they're intaking so much nicotine as well. And you can get nicotine too, like if I spilled this on my hand, my skin would absorb the nicotine that way too. Or your eyes too. Yeah, so with a lot of these e-cigarette products, with the open systems I talked about, like the tanks and the vape pens, the mods, you can put whatever you want in it. And a lot of people can put marijuana, the THC version of it, or other versions of liquid, and also other illicit drugs. Something else to note too, like with Juul, so it seems like it should be a closed system, this little pod, but you can actually take it apart and put whatever you want in it. So you can put marijuana in here or whatever you want in it as well. I had a school nurse tell me that a kid vaped alcohol and that kid also vaped gasoline. So if you can put anything in it, kids are crazy, they might put anything in it and vape it. It's just something to be familiar with as well. So how do we know if our kids or students are vaping? E-cigarettes, vape pens, Juuls, there's just this like random sweet scent. So like I kind of mentioned this before, the vapor dissipates really quickly. It doesn't stick around that long, especially with Juul. So it can be pretty easy for kids to just vape and no one knows. But you might smell like a sweet Bath and Body Works Febreze sort of scent. I hear the bathrooms all over the country are smelling very sweet, too sweet, or bathrooms in high schools. Also, to check out for unfamiliar products, things that look like USBs. That little pod that you can see, I had school nurses tell me that they see the caps especially to those everywhere, and just like the discarded empty pods. So just a pen might not be a pen, a USB drive might not be a USB drive. Sometimes it's best to check that out a little bit more. Another question that I always get asked is, how are kids getting these products? You're supposed to be of legal age to buy tobacco products to get these. So how are underage kids getting these? They can get them directly from the retailer, even though that's illegal. The retailer's supposed to card people who look 27 years old or older, but it does happen that some can sell to underage. Friends and social sources. Sometimes I hear that there's like little businesses going on of selling products to friends, and online too. So it does seem pretty easy to get these online, especially there's gift cards that can be used, Visa gift cards as well. And so that image on the right, that was a survey by the Truth Initiative about where kids got their Juul pods, and it actually showed 74% got them from a physical retail location, which is pretty concerning for compliance check-wise, that people are selling to kids that often. Social sources, 52%, and then 6% internet. And to note on that study that the 6% internet, they said while it was small, that kids were successful almost all the time getting them on the internet when they tried. Okay, so moving on to some tobacco and vaping industry tactics. I'm gonna dive deep into this because I think it's so important to understand that the tobacco and vaping industry are targeting kids. They're targeting kids because, as I mentioned before, the younger you hook them, the more likely they are to be addicted for life. And that's the tobacco and vaping industry's most profitable customer, right there, a teen. They'll be hooked for life. So this is just shows how e-cigarette advertising grows, so does youth use. So I want to show a little bit something that I chatted with my friend John about earlier, about this video from the Truth Initiative that talks about Juul. But just to start it off, we know that Juul started marketing, and they showed these images of young, cool people showing fun relaxation mode and sex appeal. Like, this was their launch party. And if you see anything from Juul now, they're saying, oh, we only intended adults to use our products. If you hear that, the radio ads on Kiss 108 that kids listen to, I don't know why they're on Kiss 108 then, they say this is for adults only for nicotine. But that's not what their initial campaign was. So we wanted to show this, and let's hope this works. This is from the Truth Initiative. I just saw this today.
In case you're new, everyone at my school, Juul.
Juul has taken over the world. I've given in because I want to know what the hype is about.
Now the technical guy is going to panic. Hang on
Oh,
one
we had to
sec.
figure it out before, apparently we didn't. You don't have to show it too, we can't get it to her.
Big fingers hit power off instead of escape.
Medley.
Creme brulee, because that sounds fancy and I like that.
It tastes great.
Well, if you're on a head rush, definitely the Juul.
It's very strong. My God. God, bro, give me the biggest necklace.
The Juul challenge, you gotta hit this thing as many times as you can.
We're doing the Juul Hotbox Insane Nick Buzz Challenge, you dig?
I got some accessories.
Type in charging case for Juuling. Rolo bag.
Sword drops.
This one is watermelon and it's literally so good.
Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Almost there, folks.
There we go. Good job. It's worth seeing, so that's why it's doing it. It really puts it all in perspective.
In case you're new, everyone at my school, Juuls,
Juul has taken over the world. I've given in because I want to know what the heck it's about.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your
Today's video is going to be a Juul sesh. You got the mango pod, the cool cucumber,
fruit and medley.
Quick way, that sounds fancy and I like that.
it tastes great.
Well, if you want a head rush, definitely the Juul.
My God, bro, give me the biggest necklace.
The Juul challenge, you gotta hit this thing as many times as you can.
We're doing the Juul Hotbox Insane Nick Buzz Challenge, you dig?
I got some accessories.
Type in charging case for Juuling. Rolo bag.
Sword drops.
This one is watermelon and it's literally so good.
So I hope that was worth the wait. All right. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit better of a picture of kind of what kids are doing. I know that I can't describe it as well as that you can see that happening right there. What's interesting too is Juul, they didn't put that much money into their marketing because it kind of just took off and kids were using social media on their own to market to, and it just promoted it freely that way. And so something to note too is what is so appealing about Juul especially, and just e-cigarettes in general, is that head rush that those kids talked about. It feels really good. And they also call it like a nick. It's getting like a high on nicotine.
They use buzz a lot.
But yeah, the buzz too. Thank you. So how are the tobacco and vaping industries targeting kids? It's just something to note that I say tobacco and vaping industries. Lots of tobacco industries, or tobacco companies, they have e-cigarettes now. All of them do. They kind of see that as the new market. Juul is not owned by a tobacco company. And there are some that are independently owned, so we say tobacco and vaping industries. But basically, the tobacco industry has had the same tactics like all along. Their products are sweet, they're cheap, and they're easy to get. And vaping products literally have followed exact suit. So this picture has 20 tobacco products in it. You can't tell, it looks like candy. You can try to figure them out while I talk if you want. But what's pretty crazy is back in 2009, the FDA banned flavored cigarettes, except for menthol. So there's no flavored cigarettes now. And they banned it because flavors mask the taste of tobacco, more likely to addict kids, and they are clearly, and tobacco industry documents said that they were clearly targeting kids with these flavors as starters. So the FDA said, we're banning this. They didn't ban other tobacco product flavors. So we still have these little cigars that can be pretty popular too. There's blunt wraps that are out there, and those blunt wraps are typically used to roll marijuana or other drugs, but they're flavored blunt wraps, and they're pretty popular and they're pretty cheap. There's chew, and then there's e-cigarettes. And after this 2009 ban on flavored cigarettes, we saw a boom in all these other flavored tobacco products. And there's over 7,000 flavored tobacco products as well. 7,000. There's so many different wild flavors that are so targeting kids. Fruity, sweet, just like candy. And yeah, these flavors appeal to kids. It's the leading reason, flavors are the leading reasons why kids use e-cigarettes. And the flavors make them seem harmless. Like I said, everyone just thinks it's flavored water is what they're vaping. That's what kids think. And then this just shows that e-cigarettes, all the way on the left, 81.5%, the leading reason that they're using e-cigarettes is because of the flavor. You can see hookah, 78%, cigars, 73%, etc. That table on the right shows the younger you are, the more likely you are to use flavored tobacco products. Older people don't really like the flavors as much. This is a fact to show that right here. We know young people like flavors. They're attracted to flavors. A few pictures. These are some from my coworkers. They have these. I don't have enough money in my budget to buy all of these. I saw this one on the ground when I was walking, and I stopped and I took a picture because obviously this is my job right now. But blue slushy really got me on this one because I remember all the kids drinking blue slushies at the gas stations, or gas stations, convenience stores that you would get them at. So that got me. So cheap. E-cigarettes at first, they really aren't cheap. Like I told you, that Juul starter kit is $50, which is a little pricey. But there's tons of discounts, tons and tons of discounts. Refer a friend, buy it here, here's a discount here. There's lots of discounts. And we know that low prices, they can create impulse buys. And kids are really, really price sensitive. Kids are so price sensitive. And actually we know that high price is the most effective way to reduce kids from using tobacco products. And that's partially why we have seen the cigarette rate decrease so rapidly among young people, because of taxing and increasing the price. Youth are really price sensitive. Here's some products that I bought online and got some great discounts for. That bottom left, I have it right here, is this blue starter kit. I got it for a whole $1. And yeah, it's rechargeable. It's a Mod Pod similar to a Juul. I got free shipping. Just totally took everything off. I got it for $1. And blue is owned by a tobacco company as well. This one on the right, I got it for $2.13. Also got free shipping. It looks like a pen. It's called Buse. And it's also the pod-ish sort of version that you can take it off. And I got 2 of these pods in it and the charger as well. Smells great. Got fusion flavored. Next, these products are easy to get. Like, kids really aren't having trouble getting these products at all. In the tobacco and vaping industries, they're putting these products where kids can see them. They're putting them in local convenience stores and gas stations where kids are getting their blue slushies and where they're vaping the blue slushie, getting the blue slushie liquid apparently too. But they're everywhere. Like, that's what they do. They put the tobacco and vaping industry purposely want these products next to the candy at eyesight. That's done on purpose. It makes it more appealing. And having these products everywhere just normalizes them. The more you see them, the more normal it seems, which is not okay because these products obviously shouldn't be normal and they're not safe. And also research shows that the more kids see these products in convenience stores and gas stations, the more likely they are to use them. So the more often they see them, the more likely they are to use them. Just some pictures I took. Clearly I'm like crazy and take pictures where I go and see things, and my friends think I'm crazy as well. But there's that $15 off Juul promotion. Just walking by, you see like Juul sold here, places just really highlighting that they're selling the products. That one on the right is literally like a convenience store, and it was basically like a full-on vape shop. That is pretty wild to me, of all the products there. All right, so I'm just finishing up. I just want to give you guys a few resources of what you can do, and then we'll start the panel. So kind of what I'm promoting from the Department of Public Health is the new look of nicotine addiction. Have you guys seen any of the billboards or any ads for it? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, no one really. But it is a big initiative by the Department of Public Health, and it's educating parents and teachers. And so actually a lot of the resources are back there, so feel free, please take them. And on the website, so there's Get the Facts for parents, tips for talking with your kids, and actually a school toolkit for schools that actually have a lot of really useful like curriculums, survey data, or survey questions and things like that on there. And you can, just so people know too, you can get these products, print materials from the clearinghouse. And there's cards back there if you want to order anything from the clearinghouse to hand out too. What else you can do? We have parents and adults, maybe teachers here, talk with your kids. Like I said, there's so many misperceptions about e-cigarettes. Like people in the health profession don't even know like what the harms are of these. And so it's really concerning. So really honing in the fact that there's nicotine, which is addictive and harmful for adolescents. Dispel the myths. It's not water vapor, that's what I like to yell. It's not water vapor, it's an aerosol. An aerosol is a hairspray. You gotta get that through to people too. What also is something to note is that kids don't like being conned. So when they find out that tobacco and vaping industries are targeting them just to make money and to get them to be their lifelong users, kids don't like that. So a lot of kids don't think that any long-term consequences are going to happen to them, or they'll get addicted, blah, blah, blah. But when they find out that, oh my God, they're using me to make money, they don't like that. So that's a good talking point too. And the Truth Initiative has some good information about that. Yeah, and just in general, conversations with your kids, open conversations, avoiding lectures. Parents love lecturing, kids don't like listening to lectures. So just casual conversations are really good. And if you are or were a tobacco user or know someone that was, that's okay. It's something you can bring up to talk about nicotine addiction, wishing you didn't start, reasons that you want to quit, et cetera, et cetera. And I think parents a lot of times don't realize that kids do listen. Like, you might not think they're listening, but they really do. Parents make a huge influence on their kids' decision to use tobacco and other drugs as well. So talk, they hear you. Quickly, anyone from schools, we are recommending evidence-based curriculums on e-cigarettes. Catch My Breath is a good one that Department of Public Health is promoting. We actually have someone that for free can implement the first session of this, so feel free to talk to me about this as well. I'm happy to give more information. The 84 movement, I don't think Ashland or any of the surrounding towns have an 84, but I'll just talk about it quickly in case anyone's interested in starting a chapter. The 84 is like a youth-led movement that's funded through the Department of Public Health. It's like an evidence-based peer-to-peer education about tobacco, and they're concentrating on e-cigarette/vaping a lot right now, and they talk about the tobacco and vaping industry targeting kids. So that's kind of their main talking point there. What's really cool is I have kids that go to the Board of Health and they change policy. It's pretty cool. There's Kick Butts Day. It's an annual event at the State House. Kids go and they talk to their legislators. So there's like a lot of cool skills that kids build. And you see advocates. I have kids taking over my job, basically, trying to change policy. It's pretty cool. And great college resume builder. You just need an advisor that supports the kids for this, and at least my kids. Also, school nurses are really seeing kids addicted to these products now, and they don't know what to do. We're still looking into more smoking cessation specifically for e-cigarettes for teens. There's not that much out there currently right now. Smokefreeteen.gov has some apps and texting that can help quit. Also to note, the Massachusetts Quit line, I have some cards back there. For it, it's like 1-800-QUIT-NOW. They will take teens soon on that to coach them to quit. But yeah, I know this is something school nurses are really struggling with, and schools are struggling with, is resources for kids to quit. Also at the local level, I talked about how I go to towns to pass local policy. I know Ashland has all policies in place. They're doing an awesome job. Good job, guys. But just in general, passing policy is gold standard public health work and prevention. So any policies that you can pass, the greater impact that you have. And then just so people are updated on what's happening in the tobacco world, so Governor Baker signed off on a new law that makes Massachusetts the legal purchasing age 21 in Massachusetts. It was 18, so I know locally that it's been 21, and I think a lot of surrounding towns are 21 too, but there's some towns that still aren't 21. What will be interesting though is that it's a graduation strategy, or basically not everyone is going straight to, if you are 18, you're not going straight to 21. So currently, if you're 18 and you can buy cigarettes, you're going to be allowed to continue buying cigarettes. So 2019, the legal age is going to be 19. 2020, the legal age is going to be 19. So we are encouraging towns that aren't 21 to go 21 before the end of the year, so it's not wildness of discovering who can buy tobacco products. What's great on the e-cigarette note is that e-cigarettes are now included in the smoke-free workplace law, so where you can't smoke cigarettes/tobacco, you can't smoke e-cigarettes. So these people that I've seen like in bars and on the T vaping, you can't do that. Statewide, no tobacco products can't be sold in pharmacies anymore. And locally, we know that's happened, but now it's statewide, so that's pretty awesome as well. Okay, so just quickly, everyone always asks what they can do. And I told you what you can do. Here's just everything kind of on one slide. If there is anyone with connects to like local newspapers or media, I'd love to talk to you after to get more information out. The more information we can get out, the better. But yes, my contact info, and now I'll invite our panel to come up.
All right, so Mary did a great job. We can give her a round of applause. And now what we're going to do is we're going to hear from the experts and the people that touch our communities. And I just want to thank our entire panel for coming. And we'll start down on the end, and maybe Kristen, that's start off by introducing themselves to everybody out there.
Just a brief introduction. Hi, I'm Kristen
Oh,
French.
just pick up the mic.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Hi, I'm Kristen French. I am the Director of Prevention Outreach for the town of Ashland and also the Director of Ashland's Decisions at Every Turn. We are Ashland's Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition for Youth.
Hi, I'm Audrey LaCroix. I'm the full-time school nurse at the Ashland Middle School, and I'm also the nurse leader in the town of Ashland.
I'm Lauren Carrero. I am a Dean of Students at Ashland High School.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Oram. I'm the Public Health Director Agent for the town of Ashland. First and foremost, I just want to thank John for moderating here, my chairman for the Board of Health, and more importantly is this panel. As you can see, the school input is tremendously important as we deal with this, as well as decisions at every turn. Having Kristen here, working with them as well, our substance abuse group for the students. This has got to be a team effort. And I'm already overwhelmed by what was presented, and I know a little bit about this. I'm starting to worry about my grandchildren. You know, it's a serious situation. We're dealing with big industry, so we need to start going further. And when I say we, thankfully my Board of Health has been very serious about tobacco and making sure it's not getting into the youth's hands, as well as we don't allow any flavors except what's required by the federal government. So I think the Board of Health in Ashland has taken some tremendous steps, and I know they're going to continue with those steps. And one of them, I hope, will be to prevent or at least decrease the amount of juuling. With that, I don't want to take from the committee, but if anyone else would like to comment, feel free.
Comments that I wrote down earlier before seeing the presentation. So I want to thank Mary for an awesome presentation. There were actually some points that you made that I almost have verbatim in the notes that I wanted to just speak about as a prevention specialist and for someone who works really, really hard to prevent substance use among Ashland youth. What I really want to take home, what the message that I really want you to take home from a prevention perspective is that most kids are not using substances, they're not vaping, they're not juuling. It might seem like they are, but the good news is that they're not, and that is the work that we continue to do as a coalition, and I'm sure in other communities as well. Oh, that's better. But you did notice, you did make a note that in a 2017 study, 20% of Massachusetts high school students reported that they were using. The Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, which is done every 2 years in the Metro West area, the 2016 data showed that 72% are actually not using in high school levels, and at the middle school level, 94% are not using. And even with our own survey that we did in the spring, a positive community norm survey, 63% reported that they never used electronic vapor devices, EVDs. However, I know folks on the panel are actually working with students who are using, so even though we are very much on the prevention side, we do know that there are risks, and we really care about the kids that are using. And one of the reasons is what you had brought up earlier, is the addiction of the nicotine. And when kids are using nicotine, it primes the pathways for addiction, not only for continued nicotine use, but for alcohol, for marijuana, for opiates. And what makes it really scary and concerning is that we know that kids who are using EVDs are using these other substances. According to the Adolescent Health Survey from the Metro West Health Foundation, kids who reported using e-cigarettes are 23% are also smoking traditional cigarettes, 76% are also drinking alcohol, and 65% are also using marijuana. So we have use rates, and we have the increased chance for addiction. So that's it's concerning, it's alarming, it's scary. So that's just one of the points that I wanted to make, and maybe as we go through, I'll come back and talk about it a little bit more.
Okay. Go ahead. I was going to say, Audrey, why don't you talk about it from like the school nurse standpoint and what you see and what concerns you from a school nurse, because you know it was mentioned during the presentation that school nurses are seeing a lot of it. And I might even have a follow-up question, and then the audience will as well.
Well, I work in the middle school, and there is some use in the middle school, but I think that the use is more in the high school. that they're seeing there. We do have policies in place, tobacco-free schools, school zones, kids aren't allowed to have the products with them at all. I haven't seen any kids suffering any ill effects. I do know the nurse at the high school, Mrs. Winsick, she does do some education with the students who are been caught with the Juuls or the vaping devices. We, in the past, back in the early 2000s, we were very much involved with smoking cessation education. So it looks like that's going to come full circle again, and we'll be into that more. Nurses really like to educate, so unfortunately we're doing more of that.
Yeah, so Lauren, from the high school perspective, because it's got to be a real issue in the school.
For us, what we're trying to do this year is use more of the education pieces in the high school. So obviously if a student is caught with a vape or a Juul, either in possession of it or using it in school, on school property, at a school event, there is a consequence as listed in the handbook. And Erin LaChapelle, the other dean, and I are really making an effort this year to include education as part of that consequence. Because as we saw tonight, there's a lot of facts and figures for it that teenagers don't really know. You know, I have had students question me saying, oh, there's nicotine in it, you know, not really understanding that. And so we're really trying to make an effort to educate, because we think down the road that that's ultimately what's going to help stop them from using. Rather than just having the consequence, we know that the education is going to have that lasting effect.
And I really thought it was very important, Mary, what you said is we have to have leaders from the student groups, and it's great to see they're active in that, and students listen to students and peers, so that's great to hear. Hopefully someday we'll see others involved, such as sports stars and so forth, to say, do you really want to inhale hairspray? I think that was perfect how you phrased that, with nicotine, mind you, and you're being conned. I mean, those messaging is so important in today's world, because it's just a couple words that you need nowadays to message out something to whoever your group may be. One important thing that I think hopefully is helping with our rates in Ashland is that we run a very comprehensive tobacco program. Fortunately, the fees we collect for our tobacco permits are utilized for comprehensive inspections, and I can say the last comprehensive inspection, we had 100% compliance, and we are out there with youth that are over 18 but not 21 trying to purchase Juuls or vapes or cigarettes, and we'll switch it back and forth. And I'm very happy to report just a couple of weeks ago we had 100% compliance, and we'll let our vendors know that. We have a limit of 18 vendors. And the other thing I think that's important is the attractiveness of flavors. And in Ashland, you cannot have flavors sold in any type of nicotine delivery item, might it be tobacco, Juuls, vapes, whatever it might be. So that's the team effort I like seeing, where the schools are working very hard on their end. We're doing the best we can on our side. The state, it's good to see the state being involved. At one point, almost every city in town had a tobacco agent, including Ashland. But that money, unfortunately, was not there for the past, say, 2 decades. But again, I think our governor's starting to take attention to this, and maybe more money from our legislators will be funneled back to the locals so we can continue on this crusade.
All right, we appreciate everybody's patience. Hopefully we have a lot of questions for our very good panel here. Anybody want to be the brave person to ask the first question? And if you do, I'll bring the mic to you. Anybody have a question? All right, somebody be brave. Come on. Okay, we'll start back here.
Can I just talk loud, or do I need?
No, because the people at home can't hear you.
Okay.
I recently heard about the program in the Belmont schools and the Gardner schools concerning helping students through after they have had a vape taken away from them. And I believe it's a 5-week program, at least in Gardner it is, so I was wondering if someone from the schools might comment on what you kind of believe might be an effective way to help those students, because we know nicotine use is not only a physical thing, you know, using the product, but it's also a behavioral, psychological thing. So I was wondering if you might be able to comment a little bit on if there's plans in the local schools to do something similar.
So the education that we're using as part of the consequences is very new to us. We had based it off of, I actually think it was Belmont, I think that's the one we reached out to someone there. So we're still gathering the resources and kind of figuring that out. So we would like to expand that, but like I said, you know, we're just trying to figure it out and see what its effects are in the early stages. But having a longer program ultimately is a goal, because the education piece is very important to it, but we're still figuring that out.
Any other questions?
I can add something to that as well, because I work in so many different towns, and I can say it is a demand for schools and school nurses too that are saying we want some sort of diversion program, because if kids just get punished, then, and no education behind why they got punished, it kind of, you know, it doesn't really do the trick. Just something too to note that I'm not sure what Belmont uses for content / curriculum, but just using like some sort of school curriculum that's tailored to kids is really important to do so. Like there's like Catch My Breath in the Stanford curriculum, so just using materials that get to kids is really important. But I've heard Belmont's kind of going around, so.
Mary, in the early 1970s, we banned cigarette ads from radio and television. So I have heard many of the ads for Juul in particular on the radio, and you alluded to them in your presentation. Have you heard anything on the state level, and then maybe from levels above, where people are looking into that, or at least questioning why they're allowed to advertise basically a similar product to things that were banned for specific reasons?
Yeah, it's really confusing of what's happening right now with e-cigarettes. And so I know that they are looking into regulating them more like typical tobacco products, but right now I'm not sure what is going to happen. So, unfortunately.
Is there anybody from the industry here this evening? No? Any other questions? Oh, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess this question is for you, Mary. It's maybe more of a comment. And I really appreciate that you said the more that students see these products, and whether that be through advertising online or out when they're out, and also going into convenience stores and seeing the products on the shelves. I do have to say, we have the closest business to our middle school is a convenience store. So I know kids are often going in, purchasing items. So can you just talk a little bit more about the normalization that happens when students see the products in stores or advertising?
Sure. Yeah, and so studies show that kids that stop, I think I have this exact number in my head too because I say it so often. Kids that go to a convenience store 2 or 3 times a week are 64% more likely to use tobacco products. What's really concerning too is kind of how you mentioned before is that kids are seeing this stuff online too. And I talked about how Juul advertisements too, it's just like promoted by other kids. Like they're not even paying for this. And so it really does normalize just e-cigarettes in general. And that's one of the reasons that they are perceived as safe too, because it's such a normal thing that is starting to happen right now. And from our tobacco perspective, cigarettes aren't normal anymore. They're gross. They're bad for you. We're not seeing that with e-cigarettes. But I can say from the local level, so I work under the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation Prevention Program, and we promote a lot of local regulations and policies. And so like Ashland has adopted all of our recommended policies, and that And all of them are, the purpose is to reduce kids' exposure in convenience stores and gas stations like that. So the flavor restriction is awesome, because they don't see the flavored products. You guys have capping too, right? Have you capped the number?
18.
Yes, so 18, so no more than 18. So at the local level, really doing an awesome job trying to limit that exposure that kids are seeing these in person. So, yeah.
And unfortunately, the facility that sells tobacco closest to the middle school was grandfathered to some degree, and it turned over just as a operator, not the owner changed, so the board had to make a difficult decision. But there was the 18th one, and as time goes on, if something changes there, they probably will not meet our, they definitely will not meet our 500-foot rule to any school. And so time will tell that, and it's important too, I think, that we continue to monitor and seek as much legal opinion as we can on advertising. It's a good question on advertising. The problem with advertising is that we can't control at this point at the local level, and we're hoping, we've gone to a lawyer for the Mass Associations of Health Boards. I always mix them up with our association. Cheryl Sabara, she's an attorney. We've tried to seek some information on advertising, but it's going to have to happen from the federal level down, in my view, from what she has said with amendment rights, your First Amendment right, and so forth. The other issue we had recently, when I say recently, a year or two ago, we require all tobacco products to be behind the counter. And we had a gas station that had Juuls or vape products out in the aisle. What they were doing is they were empty boxes. So our laws could not say remove them because there was nothing in the box. So again, we're always needing to get a step ahead, it seems like, with various ways of advertising and other ways that the tobacco industry works to entice their customers, and especially their young customers. So I know my board, I'm very proud to work for them, very honored, because they will continue to find other avenues if we can't get to a certain point that we feel we need to be to. We don't want to see advertising. I know I personally don't. I won't speak for my board members, but you know, we have a convenience store that advertises at a low level. Again, we can't do anything about it, and they sell train tickets. So I saw a board member, a previous board member, in there, and the reason he was in there, he had to buy train tickets, but his young child had to be about the height to see that advertising, was able to see it. So again, it's advertising, I think, is a next step we really need to address. They will, obviously, our youth will see internet advertising, but again, we need to get to the step where our other tobacco products are. And I can only suggest, and I will only be able to do this, is seek your boards or your legislators, and from the state right to the federal. That would be my suggestion on advertising.
If I could, and I'm going to ask for permission so you can say no, but I'd like to hear from this young man. Is that okay?
Sure.
Is that okay, Mom?
Knock yourself out.
Okay. So what do you think of this presentation tonight?
Explain why you're here.
Thank you.
I'll explain why I'm here.
My
My
name.
name is Maggie Kotab. I'm currently working on a PSA about this topic for, I'm working with the Citizens of Every Turn Ashland and WACA-TV and the Boy Scouts of America, because it's my Eagle Scout project to put this together. And I thought the presentation was really good. I thought it was very interesting. And I definitely learned some things. A lot of the stuff I knew from research while writing the PSA, but I definitely thought a lot of it was, what did I learn? I took pictures of what like slides. I have pictures of like the stuff that I thought would be interesting or something I should probably add into the PSA. I thought it was well done. I don't really have much to say, sorry.
Well, you're a real leader, so thank you for coming, and thank you for being here.
Mary, could you talk to the Juul packaging? Are you aware of the Apple link?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting topic.
Yeah, so the Juul packaging, it basically is like Apple. It's like super sleek and cool. And yeah, just like the Juul itself. So
It's the same designer, I believe.
oh, it's the same designer?
Yeah.
I never heard that.
There's a certain, so.
Oh, I never heard that.
So
That's
when
true.
When you open your iPhone.
Yeah.
You should get the same tactile feel.
Yeah,
And it's the same lettering.
So I've always compared it to Apple packaging, but I didn't, it's the
because
same.
I think they're the same.
Oh, that's interesting. I will look that up, for sure.
All right, well, I think we had some good Q&A, but yeah, I want to hear more from the panel.
Mackie, I had a question for you. Would you and maybe a couple of friends want to work with me looking at the 84 chapter?
Sure.
Yes. It could go right with your project, basically, too.
Yeah,
It would be
let's
like
do a little
good.
research together.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah, just thank you for being here, Matt.
Matt.
Mackie, thank you. Kim, thank you for having Mackie. No, the reason I'm very impressed, first of all, is that you're here amongst adults, but secondly, maybe we can get to you and say, how do we make it so we can be making this a cool, well, I don't know if the word's cool anymore either, that was when I was your age, but how can it be cool that kids not vape and Juul? What type, how do you get it to be a norm, I guess, is the question within your age group?
It's a tough one.
You can hold off for a minute because the mic's heading your way.
It's coming, I can think.
I think education that doesn't sound like a lecture is definitely the way to go, because at one point cigarettes were also cool, but eventually people learned how dangerous those were for them, and it slowly went from like cool to gross. I can't really, at least not at the moment, can't really think of an immediate way to start convincing kids that have kids have the same opinion as cigarettes, but it definitely educating kids on what it is, providing them with solid answers to what's in it and what happens when you use them. Is definitely the way to go. While it may be a slow one, it'll work in the long run. So.
What did you think of the video?
Of the video, I've definitely seen videos like that. I've seen because they're everywhere, and I didn't know there was a challenge. I didn't know there was like a how many Juul hits can I take before I pass out challenge. That one was a little weird.
All right, anything more from the panel?
Yeah, can I actually circle back on something that sort of reinforced the work that Lauren and Erin are doing at Ashland High School with their intervention education diversion program, as well as policy in the town, and certainly curriculum in the schools that address this. At Ashland High School, we have a social norms campaign called STAND, it's Students Taking a Noble Direction. And the philosophy behind social norms is that you use positive messaging to correct misperceptions. Teens always overestimate the rate that other kids are using. And when you put out data that shows that most teens are not using, and they see this messaging over and over, and they have other sources, their parents coming in and talking about risks and seeing educational programs and starting conversations, it starts to really make a shift in the young people's minds. And the psychology is you always want to belong to the group that's doing, you want to belong to the big group. Well, actually, the big group are not using vapes. Most kids are not using substances, so when they kind of make that connection, then it starts to maybe shift the way that they're thinking. It starts to maybe make them think about not using. It starts to, for kids that may be experimenting, pull back on use, and that's really, really important. The other piece that we use in our social norms campaign is to change the perception gaps around harm and around peer disapproval. So unfortunately, kids they don't really see the harm in it, so it's really hard to address that piece, but they also overestimate the peers' disapproval rating. They think that their friends think it's okay for them to vape. They think their friends find vaping is okay, but when you actually look at the data, peers don't want their friends to vape. That's not what they really want. They actually want their friends to make good decisions. So putting out these positive messages in posters like we do at Ashland High School, there's this constant reinforcement of like, most are making good decisions, most are making good decisions, most are making good decisions, most of my friends care. And it starts to really, it starts to sink in. We've been doing, I think, our campaign for 3 years now, and we are beginning to see a shift in the data. This will be our 4th year, and we're really, interested to see what happens next year as well. But, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else from other schools here, but campaign is a really great way to go to reach students and kind of always have it in their purview. But at the same time, I have here, kids need to hear health messages from adults who care. In the schools, their parents, the community, through policy, we all need to be talking about it. So if they're not hearing it from the parent, maybe they're hearing it from the teacher, or they're hearing it from their coach. It's just really important, and that's kind of what prevention is all about. So I want to make that point.
Kristen, if I may, your program's phenomenal. The school decision at every turn, as well as Amy's here too from there, and all the other parents and volunteers that make a difference with decisions at every turn. Hopefully that model will be utilized in other school systems, and maybe tonight, Mary, you can take that away, and as I said earlier too, it's all about messaging, promotion, social promotion, and so forth. I look, and I want to thank Mass Bay, but I look right behind me, and we could say, their dreams, our crusade, just like you say, our dreams, our mission, or your dreams, our mission. Just those simple words to get out there. I mean, it is our crusade to stop this. This is ridiculous, the Juuling vaping situation. And we as parents, adults, students alike, we all need to work towards this, I feel, crusade to put an end to it the best we can. But again, the models that Decisions at Every Turn uses are excellent models. I think that should be shared throughout the Commonwealth and the country.
So Mary, we're almost up against our scheduled time to go, but I have one question and then a closing comment. Mark will remember, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago when vaping became a little bit more mainstream and became a little bit more popular. The Ashland Board of Health was, targeted by the industry, and the industry was rather vigilant about coming to our meetings and letting us know that their point of view and not to put anything into place. What are you seeing from the industry that we need to be concerned about as a local Board of Health? And then more importantly, is there going to be any talk about legislation to educate the public? I believe in free, myself, I can't speak for the board, but I believe, a free economy is a free economy, but, I think we saw tonight, and then we all need to be a little alarmed about the health risks. Is there going to be any federal legislation that you've heard about, or more importantly, anything from the state?
So currently, federally, I don't think I mentioned this before, but maybe a little over a month ago, the FDA gave the top 5 e-cigarette brands, including Juul, 60 days to come up with a solution to addressing kids using e-cigarettes, which is kind of funny because they're like giving the power to the e-cigarette companies that want to hook kids, like how to make kids not use the products. And there was actually a meeting, I think, this week with the FDA and some of the companies. So I'm not sure what's going to come out of it. The FDA commissioner said that they were considering completely banning flavors. I think that'd be awesome. Ashland has done that. So in Massachusetts, so that current policy, the flavor restriction, people can still buy flavored tobacco and vape products in adult-only tobacco or vape stores too. So they still are legal, but kids aren't supposed to be able to see them. So really, in reality, there should be no flavors, in my opinion. Statewide, what's happening, we're actually looking into a menthol ban. So people know menthol is not included in the flavored tobacco products ban. Basically, the tobacco companies lobbied enough to keep menthol in, which is really concerning because we know that the tobacco companies specifically targeted communities of color with menthol. And so there's very high rates with menthol of communities of color. So it's just really such an inequity that's out there right now. So that is something that's on the mind. I go to lots of Board of Health meetings. I'm not at any of yours because you guys have all the tobacco regs. But they really don't like the flavor restriction. They hate the flavor restriction. The tobacco companies hate it. So, I mean, that's kind of what they're fighting right now. And then, you know, they get the retailers out there as well saying, we're going to lose money, even though we have no proof that of the amount of money that the retailers are losing. But yeah, they're trying, basically the tobacco, or the lobbyists are trying to discredit any studies that have been out there, and are trying to say that kids are buying these online. That's a big thing. They're saying that kids are buying these online. So that I had a slide up there that showed only 6% of kids are getting these online, and I tried to really push that kids can buy these in stores, actually. So that's what we're seeing there.
Mary, if I can, just on that comment, it does bother me too that we still have to allow menthol, mint, wintergreen, and tobacco. Those are the 4 that the tobacco lobbyists have required us to not consider flavors. Do you know if they're just deciding on menthol? Are they looking at wintergreen and mint?
It would be all.
All, excellent.
Yeah, I believe. But yeah, that's a huge concern.
All right, I want to thank our panel. I think they deserve a round of applause. I want to thank WACA-TV for always being there and videotaping it. I want to thank Mass Bay Community College for being a great partner on this, but more importantly, we want to thank everybody out in the audience. And what I do is I want to close with one statement. The Ashland Board of Health has some serious goals for this year, and one of our goals was to be much more proactive in the community than we have been in the past few years. And our former chairperson, Mary Mortensen, who we unfortunately lost last year, what we named our Public Health Award, she was a leader in the state of Massachusetts. And now, as you said tonight, you know, Massachusetts is 21 for tobacco. Well, that movement started in Ashland. And to honor her memory, I'm going to challenge my board that we put another flag in the ground and we become the leaders on the vaping issue. And this will be on our next agenda. And we're going to try to get some work done. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. So moved. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, and have a good evening.